to good friends, the ones we hold dear, the ones who will tell us what we need to hear, the ones who love us, right or wrong, and to all those good friends who give you this song.
Well, hello, good friends, and welcome back to The Last Walk, Remember When, with your host, Ron Baumbach. And we're going back in time again to the fun times. So, get up off your easy chair, walk over to the fridge, open that ice box up, reach on the side door, pull out a bottle of Yoo-Hoo, open it up, pour it into a tall glass, reach up into your cupboard, and find where your mom hid those animal crackers. Sit back in your easy chair, turn on your lava lamp, close your eyes, get ready, it's storytelling time. The Last Walk is back.
Oh, I've been so lucky and I've been so blessed. In spite of my failings, I've found success. For I've known love and I've known good times, and I have known friendship and written some rhymes.
When you hear the sound of that horn, it means only one thing. The Triple Crown is back. The Triple Crown, held in 3 places in our country: the Kentucky Derby, the Preakness, and the Belmont Stakes. How much do we know about the Triple Crown? The first race is the Kentucky Derby at Churchill Downs in Kentucky, obviously. Now, what's the special drink that everyone has when they go to the Derby? It's the mint julep, served in a silver cup. It's a bourbon, mint leaves, water, and sugar. Now, the Derby was started in 1875 and originally was 1.5 miles long. Then it was shortened to 1.25 miles, which it is today, in 1896. And the number of horses that run in the field are 20. Now, the Preakness Stakes in Pimlico in Baltimore has been running in Baltimore for a number of years. It's a field of 14 horses, the shortest one of all of them. And the track is 1 mile and 3/16 long, the shortest of all. Now, while the Preakness started in 1873, it didn't run in 1891 to 93. And now we have the mother of them all, the Belmont Stakes, the longest one at 1.5 miles. In fact, originally, it was of 1.58 to 1.18 miles until set permanently at 1.5 miles in 1926. It's the longest of all the races in the Triple Crown. The horse racing is called, as you probably well know, the sport of kings, which goes back to King Arthur's time in 1691. Now, the Belmont race, the Belmont Stakes, wasn't always held at Belmont. It was in various places in New York State. Finally, they decided to put it in Belmont in the year 1905, when Belmont became his permanent home. But it didn't run in 1911 and 1912 because of anti-gambling legislation back in New York. And from 1963 to 1967, it was relocated to Aqueduct while Belmont was being renovated. It's a 16-horse field, and the drink is a Belmont Jewel, bourbon, pomegranate juice, and lemonade. Now, the Triple Crown obviously has some rules and regulations. It's for 3-year-old horses, thoroughbreds, open to fillies and colts, filly being a female, colt being a male. Races were won by fillies, individual races, perhaps Pimlico or Preakness or the Derby or the Belmont Stakes, but never the Triple Crown. And gelding horses are allowed also. They were banned from 1919 to 1957 at Belmont. And a gelding never won the race, the full Triple Crown, the closest one being a horse called Funnyside, who won both the Derby and the Preakness in 2003. Now, since 1919, there's only been how many horses who have won the Triple Crown? Give you a second. The first one was 1919, a horse called Sir Barton. In 1930, Gowan Fox won it. In 1935, a horse called Omaha came through with the Triple Crown victory. In 1937, only 2 years later, War Admiral won it. In 1941, 4 years later, Whirlaway. In 43, Count Fleet. And in 46, Assault. And in 48, Citation, the famous Citation. That was a pretty good stretch in the 40s for winning the Triple Crown. There was no other winner until 1973, when a horse called Secretariat came through and won the race. In 77, Seattle Slew came through and won the race. I believe that was followed in 78 by Affirmed, and one of my favorite horses who ran against Affirmed and couldn't quite make it was, I think, Alidar, I believe the horse's name was. And this horse was always a nose shy of beating Affirmed. Couldn't make it. And in 2015, our most recent winner of the Triple Crown was American Pharaoh. And the winner of the all-time best record is which horse? Which is the one has the record that you recall as the all-time record for the fastest track speed of every horse who ran the Triple Crown?
Life is too short, we get only one turn. With luck we find beauty, but we sometimes get burned. But if you've had a true friend, or perhaps love, you've experienced a piece of heaven above.
The answer is Secretariat. Holds a record for the fastest time, and also the world record for track and field record on dirt. 2 minutes and 24 seconds. Secretariat got it done. And they're off. In the process of doing research for this wonderful show, I learned about a lovely place called Belmont Racetrack through a wonderful book I picked up in our library, the Nassau County Historical Society Journal, from spring of 1964, was a very good article by a Richard Winchie, who wrote about the echoes of Belmont Park. I didn't realize this, but Belmont closed down, as I mentioned earlier, for a number of years when it was renovated, and they raced the horses over in Aqueduct a few miles away in Queens, while Belmont got redone. And I'm reading some of the stuff from this fellow Richard, what he wrote back in 64. The history of this racetrack, one of the most beautiful in the world, would have to go back to 1895, 10 years before Belmont Park opened on May 4th, 1905. It was in 1895 that the Westchester Racing Association was formed and began conducting thoroughbred race meetings at the old Morris Park Racetrack in Westchester County. Races were held there for a number of years until the Westchester Racing Association, under the leadership of August Belmont Jr., the former Secretary of the Navy, William C. Whitney, and others, decided to build a larger, more elaborate racetrack on Long Island. In 1902, the same year that the Jamaica racetrack was opened, a syndicate was formed to locate a site which would be suitable for their race course and to purchase it anonymously, similar, I guess, to what Walt Disney did when he built Disney World. The site which was decided upon was located in Elmont, in Nassau County, with a small portion of it at the western end situated in Queens County. Elmont, which was a part of the property purchased by Christopher and Thomas Foster in 1647, was long known as Foster's Meadow. It was later thought to have been named after August Belmont Jr., who did so much for this area. The South Side Observer, however, on February 4, 1882, shows that rather than dropping the B from Belmont, the name was selected some 20 years before he became interested in that place. At a meeting called in 1882, In order to choose a name so that a post office could be established there, the name Elmont was selected by the residents over Farmers Valley and Bellefonte. Possibly the name, as well as the natural beauty of the area, was the deciding factor in the selection by Belmont and his associates. The site of the future racetrack, which totaled more than 650 acres, was at this time owned by a number of people. So secretly did the syndicate begin its operations in the early summer of 1902, that the first people to sell their property thought it was being bought for a housing development or possibly a cemetery. By September of that year, the true purpose of the syndicate was made known, and William D. F. Maness sold his estate for a sum in excess of $125,000. The Maness estate was undoubtedly the most beautiful property in the area. The land was acquired about 1820 by D. Forrest Maness. Now, land for the proposed racetrack, which was already being called Belmont Park, was purchased for the remaining months of 1902. Newspaper articles reported that William C. Whitney suggested the name Belmont Park in honor of his good friend August Belmont, Jr., who was one of the leaders of the Westchester Racing Association and second president of the Jockey Club. Now, on a visit to the track site in 1903, August Belmont Jr. and William C. Whitney saw a group of laborers who were working for a company called New York Contracting and Trucking Company. They cut down a number of large trees on the old Hefner place in the area. They immediately issued orders to save as many trees as possible, and that's one of the many reasons for Belmont Park's beauty today, the lovely, beautiful trees that are all in the site of the Belmont racetrack. And during the summer of 1903, an ornamental iron fence more than a mile in length was erected. It was painted a bottle green with gilded balls at each division. This fence can still be seen along Hempstead Turnpike, and it still is stunning to look at. Now, by opening day, May 4th, 1905, everything was ready at the new racetrack. The grandstand, 650 feet in length, could seat 9,000 people, and the roof area was also available, as was the custom in England. The clubhouse, affording a fine view of the track, had dining rooms, bedrooms, balconies, and a bridge running to the grandstand. The administration building contained separate rooms for the stewards, clerk of the course, the handicapper, clerk of scales, jockey's dressing room, and infirmary. The Turf and Field Club, which had taken over the Maness Mansion, was expected to attract such people as the Whitneys, the Morgans, the Vanderbilts, Gaylets, and the Astors. Now, they had famous races back then. The initial Belmont Stakes, named after the family, not the racetrack. The Toboggan Handicap, the Fashion, the Withers, the Metropolitan Handicap, the Suburban Handicap, the International Steeplechase, the Jerome Handicap, the Manhattan Handicap, the Matron Stakes, the Ladies Handicap, the Champagne Stakes, and many, many others. Now, races, incidentally, were run clockwise, as they do in England, until 1920. Now, Belmont wasn't just for horse racing. Around 1910, it came into national prominence for aviation. Such famous members of the aviation world, such as Glenn Curtis and Orville and Wilbur Wright, were on hand, not to fly, but to supervise the operation of their planes. The two Wright flyers, a fellow named Arch Hoxsey and Ralph Johnstone, were known as the Heavenly Twins and the Stardust Twins, thrilled the opening day crowd in their attempts to break the world altitude record. They took off with winds blowing at an apparent speed of 20 miles an hour. As they reached higher altitudes, however, the winds increased to 45 miles an hour, and the two biplanes were gradually forced backwards. Higher and higher the plane spiraled till they were lost to view of the spectators. Hoxsey finally landed his plane in Brentwood, while Johnstone came down near Middle Island and claimed the world's record of 9,300 feet up in the air. Orville Wright stated this was the first time planes had climbed upward by sailing backward. The two Wright flyers continued to compete against each other almost daily for the altitude record. This ended on the last